Ever wonder what hides behind the glittering skyline and non-stop buzz of New York City? The city that never sleeps. Maybe it's not insomnia. Maybe it's fear. Fear of what wakes when everything else goes quiet. Beneath the streets, behind the walls, deep in the bones of this concrete jungle. Something watches. Something waits. Tonight, you're about to hear 3 real and disturbing accounts from people who came face to face with the city's darkest secrets. These aren't tourist tales. You won't find them on a walking tour. These are the kinds of stories New Yorkers whisper, then pretend they never said a word. So get ready, turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and if anything weird starts happening while you're watching, remember, they're listening too. If chilling stories and bone-deep fear are your thing, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who wouldn't believe it, and prepare to descend into New York's haunted side. I'm not easily rattled. I worked as a maintenance technician in the New York subway system for over 20 years, and Grand Central was basically my second home. I've seen it all down there. Rats the size of cats, pipes bursting in midwinter, flickering lights like they were invoking the devil. But everything had an explanation. Everything was technical. Everything was human. At least that's what I believed. That night began as simply as can be. A cold Wednesday morning, few calls, everything quiet. I was in the maintenance room, flipping through an old newspaper, when the radio crackled.
Thomas, we've got intermittent power failure on the auxiliary panel in Sector C5. Can you go check?
C5, I replied, puzzled. That section's decommissioned, isn't it? There was a weird silence on the other end.
It's still in the logs. Just verify protocol. Could be a short in the old circuits.
I sighed, grabbed my toolkit, flashlight and radio, and headed down. First the main stairwell, then service corridors that got progressively more claustrophobic, filthy, forgotten. Warning signs should have been visible, but I didn't see them. The fluorescent lights dimmed the deeper I went, as if the electricity itself was avoiding this path. Walls were damp, peeling, scratched, almost like fingernail marks. I reached C5 after 20 minutes. No movement, no sound. Nothing to suggest anyone had been down there for decades. The auxiliary panel sat behind a thick coat of dust, but it still worked. I began testing cables, connectors. Everything looked normal. Then I heard it. A train whistle. Old school, steam train kind of whistle. Coming from even further down, past the point marked on any map. I froze. The sound stopped. I looked at the panel again. All gauges normal, except one. The built-in analog clock showed 2:17 a.m. I checked my watch. 2:17 a.m. exactly. That coincidence chilled my blood. For the first time in my entire career, I felt a prickling tension under my skin, like the air itself was vibrating with a different frequency. And then I saw a door, at the end of the tunnel, slightly ajar, wooden old rust creeping around the latch. Above it, a tarnished brass plaque, Platform 63. My body froze, but my legs began to walk. I pushed the door open slowly, stepped into a corridor soaked in dampness and darkness, smelling of rust and rot. Bulbs overhead flickered like dying eyes. I walked as if guided by something I couldn't explain. At the tunnel's end, a small abandoned platform, low ceiling, rusted tracks, and there, parked on the tracks, a train car, frozen in time, thick dust everywhere, its windows filthy, but inside I could make out shapes, silhouettes. Then the whistle returned. But this time it came from inside the car. I wasn't alone, I felt it, hundreds of eyes watching me. I stepped forward. The car's door opened with a creak. A whisper emerged. Thomas, my name. That whisper wasn't loud. It felt intimate, like someone standing inches from my ear, knowing every hidden thought. The car door creaked across rusty rails, sounding like a soft, muffled scream. Dust poured out with each swing. I hesitated, but something not external but inside me, pulled me in. Stepping into the carriage changed everything. The air was warmer, no wind, no subway hum, a hushed silence, as if I'd entered a sealed bubble where time stood still. Faint lights overhead flickered dimly. Seated before me, 3 passengers. Motionless, a white-haired woman, a man in a 1950s suit, a child in an old-school uniform, all heads bowed. I swallowed. They lifted their heads all at once, and each of them wore my face. Not mirrored reflection, but distorted duplicates, eyes askew, mouths twisted like someone sculpted them wrong. My throat tightened. The woman smiled, and their eyes, blinking in unison. I broke for the exit, but the door vanished. Where the exit had been was now a corridor glowing with an eerie red light. The ceiling was lined with cryptic plaques, inverted numbers, Greek letters, extinct alphabets. My footsteps echoed with a delay, like the sound was chasing me. I reached the end of the corridor and froze before a mirror. It didn't show me, or the tunnel behind. It showed another time. My home, my wife and kid calling out, but frozen, trapped in a single eternal moment. I pounded the glass, screamed, but they stayed silent, still, unreachable. Then the image shifted. It was Grand Central as it is now. Police, crowds, someone being carried out on a stretcher, covered. The sheet shifted. It was my body. Panic squeezed my chest, heart pounding offbeat. A buzzing filled my ears. I tried to run, but the floor liquefied under my feet. I was on tracks. A train approached, black, mirrored, windowless. It didn't rumble. It whispered, a metallic lament. The air thickened. The lights flickered violently as it swept past. When it stopped, doors slid open. And there he stood, the conductor, tall, impeccably uniformed, bowler hat shadowing his features, broad shoulders, movements deliberate, too slow. He held something out to me, in my palm, a pocket watch, open, hands moving backwards. Behind him, hundreds of eyes glowed from inside the train. They were all watching me. The pocket watch in my palm felt heavy, like molten metal. No ticking, but it vibrated. Its hands spun counterclockwise, accelerating, dragging the seconds backward, like time itself was being unraveled. Behind the conductor, the train seemed to expand. Endless carriages, seats filled with pale figures. Some faces I recognized, others, featureless silhouettes. They pulsed and warped, as if the world had forgotten them. He pointed to the corridor behind him. Then the voice came, not from his mouth, but from the watch. "You've been here before. You never left. You are part of the station now." I stumbled back, tried to run, but the tracks moved under my feet like shifting veins. The entire Grand Central was a living entity, breathing, holding me in its heart. I turned to the mirror again. It now showed another technician coming down the stairs. Not me. Another man wearing my uniform, my badge. "Who is he?" I yelled. The watch replied, "The replacement has arrived. Your cycle is complete." A tremor ran through the station. Walls closed in. The platform shrank. One by one, lights flickered out. The mirror fractured, and in its split surface, my true reflection appeared. Eyes void, expressionless, color drained, a face forgotten by time. The conductor leveled his finger, not toward the train, but toward a set of tracks beside me, a dark tunnel descending into oblivion. I knew what he wanted, that this was my fate. I took a step and fell. Time blurred, clocks melted, screams echoed from trapped souls. Grand Central consumed by black roots. A child offered a note reading, "Your time is up." Then it all stopped. Light gone, and world vanished. I woke on a bench, in a station. But everything was wrong. The architecture was brand new. Art Deco spires, vintage benches, people dressed like 1920s commuters, a man reading a newspaper that read March 16th, 1926. I looked in the window's reflection, but it wasn't me, it was a man who died a century ago, or perhaps who never existed. I tried to speak. No voice came. Tried to run. My legs froze. A hand touched my shoulder. The conductor was there, silent. Then he whispered, "Welcome back, Thomas. Your shift begins now." My heart stopped. So did time.
Have you ever been somewhere that didn't want you to leave? Felt time just freeze around you? Let me know in the comments. And if this story left that hollow feeling in your chest, click the link below and plunge deeper into horror with our exclusive ebook. Subscribe to the channel before the clock strikes to 17 again.
I never feared silence. For me, silence was creation. I'm a writer. I need solitude, isolation, and that's exactly what I sought when I checked into the Chelsea. Months had passed without writing a single line. My editor was breathing down my neck. My agent barely returned my calls, and my readers, those few loyal souls left, were starting to forget me. I needed to find myself again, rediscover my voice. And I thought, why not find inspiration in New York's most cursed hotel? The Chelsea was a symbol of creative decay. Poets who killed themselves, musicians driven mad, artists lost to their own talent. That's what I wanted. A place that bled art and madness. When I checked in, I asked for something quiet. The desk clerk paused before offering room 205.
It's one of the oldest rooms, sir. It was closed off for a while, but now it's available. You'll have plenty of silence in there.
I signed the papers without much thought. I only noticed the waiver of liability later, but it was already too late. I was tired, desperate, willing to do anything to write again. In the corridor, the lights flickered in a slow, uneven rhythm, like the building was breathing in its own "there's only I know" pulse. The walls were lined with old portraits, but every single one was turned face down, as if the hotel didn't want anyone to see them, or as if those in the portraits didn't want to be seen. Room 205 was small but comfortable. A dark wooden desk, a worn armchair, and a window overlooking the street. Below, the city pulsed, a concrete jungle too alive to care about someone drowning in the quiet. At first, it was sane. I slept well the first night. I dreamed of pages filled with words, voices whispering perfect sentences. I woke up, ran for my notebook, but the pages were blank. On the second night, I started hearing sounds, not aggressive yet. Steps in the hallway above, scratches along the wall behind my bed. Sounds that might have been the building settling, nothing that should have scared me. But there was one thing I didn't expect, a door I didn't see before. It was between the bathroom and the desk, narrow, thinner than a standard door, made from old cracked wood, paint peeling. But strangest of all, no doorknob, just a narrow slot in the center, like someone had slammed it shut and filled it in. I ran my fingers along it. It was cold, unnaturally cold, black ice cold. I nearly burned my digits. The moment I backed away, the room's warmth seemed to rush back in. On the third night, everything changed. I woke up at 3:13 a.m. A sound pulled me from sleep, like an antique typewriter, keys tapping away, low but steady. Then a soft metal scrape, like the platen rolling. The sound was coming from behind the sealed door. I froze. The room seemed normal, yet every fiber felt wrong. The air felt thick, like it was smeared with old ink. Shadows on the walls moved opposite to the light. I smelled burning paper, old ink, stale sweat. I stood up, moved toward the door. Suddenly, the typewriter fell silent. Then, a knock. From inside. Just one knock, sharp, dry, direct. I fled back to the bed and stared at the ceiling until dawn broke. The next day, I went to the front desk, tried to keep my voice calm. Room 205. I heard something last night. The clerk's expression flickered with unease.
205. That room was closed for structural repairs. Should be fine now, sir.
But there's a door in it. By the desk near the bathroom, no knob, sealed from the inside. He stared, really stared.
Sir, there has never been a door there. Room 205 has no such hidden cabinet.
I rushed back to the room, took photos, showed them to my brother. Nothing in the phone, no door, just blank wall. That evening, I couldn't sleep. The door glowed in my mind. The typewriter sound returned, now with whispers, fragments, names I didn't recognize, overlapping voices, persistent. At exactly 3:13 a.m., the door swung open, not with a crash, a soft creak, as if it had been waiting for me. Inside, a dark room, walls mirrored and fogged. In the center, an old writer's desk, atop it, an antique typewriter, black, letters embossed, worn to heaviness by time. The machine typed on its own. I stepped in. Paper read,
"He wants your story."
Around me, walls brightened. Mirrors showed reflections that weren't mine. A man stabbed to death, a woman locked in tears, children hiding under a bed. Each scene bore my face. I stumbled backward. The door slammed shut behind me. Trapped. The typewriter didn't stop. My hands moved like puppets. I picked up paper, swapped it. Typed, but the keys were hot, burning. Each letter poured my memories out. Not ideas, memories I'd never lived. Lives I knew but never had. Murder, suicide, torture. I saw it all as I typed. With each typed page, candles flickered to life. Soon dozens burned, illuminating the room. And in the corner, a hanging corpse. It swayed slowly, still living or pretending. Clothing identical to mine. The face had my eyes. Watched me even in death, as if waiting for me to replace him. I stood frozen in front of the body. It swung like a pendulum, almost gentle. Behind me, the typewriter kept clacking. Every keystroke felt like footsteps moving closer. One by one, the candles extinguished. I was left in darkness so thick, it felt like molten ink. My eyes started to burn, and then I heard something. Hundreds of voices, whispering names, dates, confessions, stories. They demanded I continue. I returned to the typewriter, my hands trembling, yet I typed, page after page. I felt bits of myself drain, first my memories, then my senses, my hearing, taste. My own voice began to distort. I typed one page, then 2, 10, 37. Then a line appeared on its own.
"You've been here before."
The hanging body froze mid-sway, opened its eyes. Every mirror flashed the same sequence. Me entering this room in 1901, 1923, 1947, 1965, 1992, always with the same face. It hit me then. The room is hunting me across time. I'm part of it. A fragment of some consciousness that demands storytelling. Real, gory, personal stories. I sank to the floor, breathing heavily, my fingers centered on the keys, and then I typed,
"My name, my name, my name."
Over and over until words lost all meaning. The machine choked. Dark smoke emerged. The keys melted into something fleshy, vein-like, not metal. They throbbed. From the machine, a hand emerged. The same hand that held the noose for the hanging figure. It seized me, not physically but spiritually, grasping my essence through the words. My childhood memories flashed, the home I grew up in. The first story I wrote. The woman I loved and lost. All pulled, twisted, siphoned into the typewriter's soul. Then, boom! The entire room shattered. Walls cracked like glass. I fell into a tunnel of shadows, a vortex of voices shouting together.
Chelsea writes through you.
I woke up on the floor of room 205, naked, covered in pages stained with my blood, words I didn't recognize, stories written under my name. Silence. The door was gone. I dressed, trembling, and fled to the lobby. The clerk stared blankly.
Sir, we have no record of you ever checking in. That room never existed. It burned 2 years ago.
She said matter-of-factly.
205 was gutted in a fire. We lost a few guests that day.
I ran, went to the hospital. Tests showed nothing unusual, no burns, no injuries, only exhaustion. But something inside me was broken. That night, in my apartment, I tried to sleep. But the mirrors reflected 205. And in my living room, the typewriter waited, flickering as though alive with a fresh sheet and scribbled in the corner.
You're not done yet.
Since then, I haven't stopped writing, not because I want to, but because something from the Chelsea is watching me. Every story I finish, I feel the room inching closer, a new crack around my apartment door, a creak from the ceiling, a shadow moving just beyond sight. I don't know how much time I have left until it takes me back, but when it does, you'll know, because next time, Sue, it might be your story.
Have you ever been somewhere that seemed to consume you from within? Something you wrote that didn't feel like your own? Tell me in the comments.
I've spent over 20 years on the NYPD, and you learn not to be impressed by anything. But there are things that don't belong in reports. Things you bury in your memory like nameless corpses. This story never made it to the official logs. It nearly destroyed my career. And maybe something far more important, my sanity. It all began on a cold November night in Staten Island. I was working a routine patrol around Moravian Cemetery, one of the city's oldest, most forgotten graveyards. It's a vast place, silent, full of twisted trees and moss-covered mausoleums. We got a call. A woman claimed she saw a child wandering among the tombstones holding a red balloon. She said the boy vanished like smoke when she tried to approach him. Over the radio, my colleagues laughed. Another drunk seeing things, they said. But I froze, because it had been exactly 15 years since I'd heard that same report. And that first time ended in tragedy. I drove to the cemetery alone, parked near the east gate. Everything was quiet, too quiet. The air felt wrong, like the night was holding its breath. My flashlight cut through the darkness, but didn't dispel the feeling of being watched. I walked slowly among the graves. Each step echoed like a gunshot. Mist swirled up, making everything feel slower, stranger, unreal. Then I heard it, a child's laugh, soft, distant, from the cemetery's center. I hurried forward, passing corroded statues, dead trees, rows of weathered headstones. The laugh stopped. Then I saw him, their boy, no older than 6, standing among the tombs, a red balloon clutched in his pale hand. His clothes looked vintage from another era. He stood still, staring. At what or whom, I couldn't tell. I couldn't see his face yet, just his outline, surrounded by unmoving fog. "Hey," I called, stepping closer. The boy turned his head. He had no face, just smooth flesh stretched over empty sockets where eyes, nose, mouth should be, like a half-carved doll. I took a step back. He took a step forward. I hit the mic on my radio. "Central Agent Wallace here. I found the child, but something's wrong. Need backup at Sector 7, Moravian Cemetery." Static answered. Then the balloon popped, not with a rubbery snap, but a human scream. The boy disappeared. In his place, something fell to the ground, a photograph. I crouched to pick it up. It was an old black and white image, me in uniform, with my old partner, Agent Julia Reyes, and behind us, a figure that shouldn't exist, the boy, holding the same red balloon in the same spot. But that photo had never been taken. I pocketed it, scanned the area. Silence again. I returned to my cruiser, trembling, tried to start the engine, nothing. On a second try, still nothing. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw a figure in the back seat. It was Julia, but Julia died in the line of duty 15 years ago, right in this cemetery. I spun around, the seat was empty. I drove home at dawn with a feeling that I'd brought something back with me. And I was right. Over the next few days, I convinced myself it was fatigue, hallucination, stress, normal human explanations that felt comforting. But one thing wouldn't leave my mind, the photograph. It still sat next to me, perfect, impossible. Me, years younger, Julia smiling, and that damned boy. The red balloons standing out in the black and white. I took it to an image specialist. He analyzed it thoroughly. High-end equipment, pixel-level details. He found no signs of manipulation, no flaws, nothing amiss. According to him, the photo came directly from a 1997 negative, the year Julia died. And that's when I understood. The cemetery was calling me back. That night, I found an envelope slipped beneath my door. No stamp, no letterhead. Inside, an old fabric scrap caked in dirt, with the initials JR stitched on it. Julia Reyes. Each night I dreamed of her, not as I'd known her, but as I'd found her that day. Eyes open, mouth stitched shut, balloon tied to her limb floating above her corpse. I plunged into old records of Moravian Cemetery, digging through microfilm archives, dusty newspapers. I found a chilling trend. Between 1903 and 1907, 16 children vanished, all described as last seen with red balloons in hand. There were no bodies, no clues, only sorrow and silence. And worse, every disappearance happened on November 13th, always at exactly midnight. That date was fast approaching. I had no choice. I went back to the cemetery. It was November 13th, 11:45 p.m. Fog moved across the ground like living hands. Trees whispered ancient secrets to each other. I slipped in through the back, avoiding main paths. I carried only a flashlight, my service weapon, and the photo in my pocket. I didn't know what to expect, just that I couldn't run. At midnight I heard it, the laugh again, thin, dragging like nails on skin. And there he was, the same boy, same spot, same red balloon. But now, there was more. Behind him, a procession of childlike figures, children, all holding balloons, all faceless. Some wore 50s clothes, others looked much older, as if they were echoes frozen at the moment they vanished. Leading them like a matron in a funeral procession, Julia. Yes, it was her, but twisted, deformed, eyes black like charred holes, mouth still stitched shut. She moved, hovering inches above the ground. When she saw me, she froze, tilted her head, as if trying to recall who I was. Julia, it's me, I whispered. Do you remember? No sound came not from her mouth, but from every corner of the cemetery at once.
You left her behind.
Pain hit me in the chest like a fist. I relived everything, the day I lost her, how I abandoned her to chase a lead. When I returned, she was gone. I never forgave myself. The children advanced. Each step sounded like the earth moaning. The air turned icy. My breath steamed. My flashlight flickered out. Then, the balloons began popping, one by one. Each pop triggered a vision. A boy buried alive, a girl locked in a tiny coffin, crying. Another child yanked by roots from the ground. Each vision more horrific than the last. All had pleading eyes, all staring at me. Julia came close, so close I could smell decay. She placed something in my palm, a pocket mirror, fractured. I looked. My face had no eyes, no mouth. Behind me, the boy. I tried to move, to run. The ground swallowed me. I plunged into darkness, not soil, but a liquid void, thick, warm. I heard voices, laughs, cries, thousands entwined, and among them, my voice, cataloguing names, dates, as if I were listing each lost child. I woke hours later, lying on cemetery soil, covered in mud and leaves, the sky still dark. My watch stopped at 0000. In my pocket was a new photo. This time me kneeling before the boy, a red balloon tied to my wrist, and behind me, Julia, smiling. Since that night, something hunts me. I can't see the world the same. Kids stare at me on the subway and point. Red balloons show up in impossible places, like hanging in bathroom mirrors inside my glove box under my bed. Sometimes, and I hear the call box ringing. Detective Wallace, we have a report. A child seen with a red balloon in Staten Island. When I answer, only static, and 3 knocks at the door, dry, precise. Always at 3:13 a.m.
Have you ever seen something that shouldn't exist? Ever felt watched by something not of this world? Let me know in the comments. And if you've made it to the end, it's already too late. Click the link below and discover even deeper horrors with our exclusive ebook, and subscribe to the channel before the next red balloon shows up at your door.
New York, the city that never sleeps. But after these stories, maybe now you understand the real reason why. In the shadows of the tunnels, behind the walls of old hotel rooms, among forgotten graves, there are things that never stopped living. You've just heard 3 real stories, buried deep in one of the world's most iconic cities. But now the question is, what other stories are just waiting to wake up? Maybe you're closer to them than you think. So tell me in the comments, which of these 3 stories chilled you the most? Would you dare visit any of these places at night? And if you're still watching, it means something in these stories got to you. Don't leave without subscribing to the channel. Turn on notifications. Share this with someone who thinks they can't be scared anymore. And finally, if you've got the nerve to dive even deeper into horrors no one dares to speak about, click the link below and unlock the full terror in our exclusive ebook. But be careful. Once you open that door, you might not be able to close it.